What if I told you that most of the wealth in the modern world doesn't actually exist? Not in gold, not even in productivity, but in something manufactured, conjured up from balance sheets, debt instruments, and promises that can never truly be fulfilled. This isn't a story about money, it's a story about control. For centuries, civilizations measured value through things that existed: grain, land, silver, gold, or the work of human hands. But somewhere along the way, we replaced tangible wealth with a system that manufactures prosperity from thin air. And here's the paradox. Every time the world celebrates an era of economic growth, it's usually built on an invisible foundation of debt, manipulation, and illusion. And once you see it, you'll never look at your money, your bank, or even your job the same way again. Farmer's harvest, a miner's gold, a craftsman's work, these things were value. Couldn't counterfeit a field of wheat or mint new sheep into existence. Ancient civilizations built economies on tangible assets. The Greeks and Romans used silver and gold coins, each containing the metal it promised. In these systems, money wasn't just a medium of exchange, it was the wealth itself. But as trade expanded, carrying metal across continents became risky and inefficient. So merchants started using paper receipts, certificates promising that somewhere in a vault sat a pile of gold. At first, these receipts were backed one-to-one by physical metal. But then someone had an idea, a small, clever, dangerous idea. What if we print more receipts than we have gold for? Because after all, not everyone redeems their gold at the same time. It started as a convenience. By the 1600s, this idea became institutionalized. They issued paper money far exceeding their actual gold reserves and lent it out to the government and merchants. Worked brilliantly until too many people tried to redeem their notes at once. The result? Panic, collapse, and bailouts. Hundreds of years before those words became mainstream. But every time the system cracked, it came back stronger. Governments realized something. Controlling money creation meant controlling the entire economy. Wars could be financed. Empires could expand. And for the first time in history, debt became the new currency of power. By the 19th century, industrial empires weren't built solely on production, but on credit. The United States, France, Britain, all rose on the promise of future repayment. The illusion was perfect. Money no longer needed to represent gold. It only needed to represent belief. World War I forced countries to print far beyond their gold reserves. Germany's Weimar Republic became the warning sign. People burning cash for heat because it was worth less than the wood it could buy. In 1944, world leaders gathered in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, to stabilize global finance. They agreed every currency would be pegged to the US dollar, and the dollar would be backed by gold. The system restored confidence, but only because everyone believed the US would never print more dollars than it had gold to back. Then came the Vietnam War, massive government spending, and the quiet printing presses of the Federal Reserve. By the late 1960s, foreign nations began demanding gold in exchange for their dollars, and the vaults started to empty. On August 15, 1971, President Richard Nixon made an announcement that changed history. The United States will suspend the convertibility of the dollar into gold. The gold standard was gone. Money became nothing but paper. From that moment, manufactured wealth became the new global standard. Once money was untethered from real value, the race began. Central banks discovered they could create wealth by expanding credit. Governments could borrow endlessly, and consumers could live on debt. And the word trillion entered the political vocabulary like it had always been there. But behind the numbers, something dark grew, a dependency. Between 1971 and today, global debt has exploded from around $1 trillion to over $350 trillion. That's more than 3 times the entire world's economic output. Yet the system demands constant growth, because if debt stops expanding, the illusion collapses. Every boom is fueled by cheap money. Every crash exposes the truth. The 2008 financial crisis revealed what happens when manufactured wealth collides with reality. Trillions in derivatives, subprime loans, and mortgage-backed securities, all built on the assumption that housing prices could never fall. But instead of dismantling the system, central banks printed even more. In 2020, the cycle reached absurd levels. During the pandemic, Global central banks created over $17 trillion in new liquidity in less than a year. The result? Stock markets hit record highs, while real economies shut down. Every attempt to fix the system has only deepened the illusion. Central banks tweak interest rates. Economists call it quantitative easing, but underneath the jargon lies the same mechanism, creating new money from old debt. The more we print, the more we must believe in what doesn't exist. The markets cheer, but the cost is hidden. Real wages stagnate, middle class erodes. And inflation quietly transfers wealth from savers to borrowers, from workers to speculators. The wealth effect becomes a mirage. Your house and stocks rise in price, but so does everything you need to live. And here's the cruel twist. Every time governments intervene to save the economy, they make it more fragile, more dependent, more divorced from real value. Today, the war between real and manufactured wealth has reached new frontiers. Digital money, cryptocurrency, AI-driven trading, and central bank digital currencies all promise innovation. But at their core, they reflect the same question. What is real value in a world where anything can be created with a keystroke? Consider this. Over 80% of all US dollars in circulation today were created in the last decade. Global derivatives markets are estimated at over $1 quadrillion. That's $1,000 trillion of contracts based largely on speculation, not assets. Meanwhile, global productivity, the creation of real goods and services, has barely moved. We've built an economy where numbers grow faster than value, and where confidence is the only thing keeping the illusion alive. And like every empire before it, the moment belief fades, collapse follows. Takeaway number 1. Real value always reveals itself. No matter how convincing the illusion, systems built on promises eventually face reality. Gold, energy, labor, and innovation. These are the foundations of true wealth. Takeaway number 2. Debt is not growth. Borrowing from the future to fund the present only delays the reckoning. True prosperity comes from production, not expansion of credit. Takeaway number 3. Belief is both the weapon and the weakness. The hidden war between real value and manufactured wealth. ISNT fought with guns, it's fought with interest rates, credit lines, and printed promises, and you are the collateral. The question isn't if this illusion will break, it's when. So the next time you see markets soaring while your grocery bill doubles, remember, numbers can be manufactured, but value cannot. Learn how money really works. Understand what you truly own. And don't mistake manufactured wealth for real prosperity. Because when the music stops, only those holding real value will still have wealth at all. If you found this story eye-opening, make sure to subscribe. We're exposing the hidden forces shaping money, debt, and power every week. Because understanding the past isn't about nostalgia, it's about survival. And in the next video, we'll uncover how debt became the most profitable product in history.